Now we're going to look at some careers that help people as they progress through stages of development. So we'll start in the very early childhood stages all the way through older adulthood. So careers that work with children. We'll start off with the early intervention programs. So something like Head Start would be an example. A lot of these are going to be government type of jobs that um, identifies families who might be at risk, maybe they're poverty, maybe there's a disability. Even these types of families might be identified even at the hospital when they're having their baby, and they're going to refer them to some kind of program with services that would help their family. So that's the type of job that we would be doing in an early intervention program. We're going to try to see the problem that is potentially there and help to guide that family in ways to give them tools to be able to work through that and to get through those things. A preschool teacher. This could be from, a daycare type of setting all the way to like private preschool, Mother's Day out type of things. There's also, a preschool or childcare director, which would basically be the people that have experience and more education, and then they kind of move up. So once you've been a preschool teacher for a few years, you can move up into the administrative role and being a director. So for these two categories of jobs, there's definitely a lot of demand for this. We've talked about in previous chapters that providing quality childcare is one of the most important missions of the AFCS. This is one of the biggest issues for working families, people that are struggling to make ends meet. They're both, either single parents, maybe they're two parents that are both working, whatever the case may be. Quality childcare is in huge demand and it can be very expensive. Good quality childcare centers will hire um, their employees that have the education and the experience that is necessary. And there really is a lot of research showing that having the staff be highly educated in child development really makes a big difference. And there's a lot better outcomes for those kiddos who are in those higher quality types of settings with people that actually understand the developmental stages of what the kids are going through that they are in charge of all day. So this is definitely a very important aspect of what the AAFCS does is to help educate and regulate these child care centers. A child life specialist. This is someone who works in the medical field. They will be employed by children's hospitals a lot of times. Regular hospitals might have them too. They're getting to be more popular, but it's still this job is highly competitive. There's not as much of a need. Um, so if you're thinking about going into child life specialist, just be aware that it's a competitive field. What they do is they work with children that are going to be long term in the hospital, or if they have a family member that has a long term kind of stay in a hospital. So this would be some children's hospitals specialize in cancer treatment or something like that. So you're going to be working with the children that are in there for a long period of time. Maybe they're going through chemotherapy or they have multiple surgeries or something like that. Maybe they have a chronic illness that they're going to be in and out of the hospital for their whole life. This can be also emotionally taxing just because you're seeing these kids and they are obviously, dealing with a lot of physical health problems and having to deal with the emotional side of that is that, these children are sick and they die and their families have to go through this struggle and it can be a very emotionally taxing job, but it can also be extremely rewarding in helping to kind of bring a little bit of normalcy to these kids' lives. So they'll put on different activities at the hospital. They'll talk with the kids. They might do play therapy. They help the hospital staff to know what types of programs and things like that they could be doing to help really benefit the children that are in long-term care. So what do you need to know if you're thinking about the early childhood type of field? Really just loving working with kids is a huge part of it. It's a high energy, fast-paced job. You're going to be exhausted. This is something that I've done for a lot of my career, so I can definitely vouch for that. It's exhausting physically, but working with the kids, you just having that the natural passion and love for working with children. And a lot of people think like, oh, I love kids, but then when they actually get into a room of, 10 2-year-olds, they might feel a little overwhelmed. So it's definitely something that you can kind of um, try out at first and see if you like it before you would spend your whole career education planning on that. Um, the hours can sometimes be hard because childcare centers have to be open before mom or dad goes to work, right? Because they've got to drop off the kid before they leave, and then the childcare center has to stay open until mom and dad get off work and get back to them. So their hours are often longer than a lot of the other types of jobs, just because that's what's required. You've got to be open early enough for people to drop off the kids, and then open late enough for the kids to be picked up after work. So definitely a lot of multitasking, being able to handle stress, being able to stay patient and calm and not lose your temper when things get stressful with the little kids. All right, next we kind of go into the teenage years, youth development programs. Um, this will bring us to our participation question for this week. So this is going to be your question that you need to answer and turn in as your assignment. I want to know if you were a part of any type of programs like this when you were a teenager. So, did you go to a Boys and Girls Club after school? Were you in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or something like that? Maybe it was something through the school that you really loved. There's a lot of programs that go with like communities in schools. Maybe it was even just like an after school extracurricular activity, whatever it was. Tell me about your best experience in a youth program, something that you did as a teenager that just really made an impact on your life, something that is very memorable for you. If you don't have any personal experience with that, maybe you didn't go to any of these types of programs, that's okay. You can tell me about someone that you know, maybe a friend or family that was involved in one of these programs, or you can just tell me about what you wish that you would have been able to participate in looking back. If you think, man, that would have really helped me to be a part of some after school program or extracurricular or something like that. Okay, so that's your participation question. Please tell me about a youth program that helped your life when you were a teenager. So if you want to go into this field, kind of like a recreational management type of thing could be part of it. You can work with the Parks Department, or city officials will also often have programs like this. There's also churches will almost always have some type of youth program. Maybe you want to be a youth pastor and you lead the youth group activities and you take them on their retreats or their campouts or whatever it is that they're doing. Um, so a lot of the important factors in here is really developing relationships, and that's the main thing that's important here with teenagers, is that you really are getting to know them and understanding the developmental stage that they're going through, because teenagers have a whole set of developmental things that happen during those years that make it difficult. That's why teenagers are sometimes hard to work with. They've got a lot of things going on developmentally. So you're going to really need to understand adolescent development and be able to build those relationships with teenagers. The other thing to remember when working with teenagers is keeping those relationships appropriate, as far as legal things, and making sure there's nothing questionable going on in your program. That's something that we've seen in the news a lot with teachers having inappropriate relationships, and so just something to be aware of that can come up sometimes when dealing with youth programs. And then the last stage of life would be the aging population, working with senior citizens. There's lots of different options in this department. Also, you could work for a nonprofit type of organization like Meals on Wheels or something like that. Program director for Meals on Wheels would be one of those administrative type of jobs. You could work for a skilled nursing facility that more on the medical side, that's helping transition to, these people can't live independently anymore, so they're going to have to be moved into a facility. A lot of those facilities will have program directors that will supply all kinds of different activities for the seniors to be able to engage in a lot of fun activities. They'll take them out to the store. They'll have, different people come in and visit. I know as youth groups, we'll go in a lot of times. We're going to go visit nursing homes. So somebody's there coordinating all of those different programs for the elderly. So with this population, you're going to need to understand that section of the lifespan, understand the importance of their nutrition and the developmental things that they're going through. Just being very patient, understanding of something that's probably very difficult for them to lose their independence and to have to go somewhere where they can't take care of themselves anymore. So just being very patient and understanding in this department as well. So these are the jobs that kind of go across the lifespan from infants all the way up to the elderly.